Hello everyone. So today we are discussing a new topic. It's capacitance, dielectrics, and electrical energy storage. Capacitance is also an important concept in physics when it comes to mainly electricity, in studies of electricity. Capacitor is a very useful circuit component we use in many electrical circuits. So the idea is to go over some introduction to capacity, capacitance, and the device capacitor, right? So we'll talk about, we'll go over the introduction and then we'll see how to solve simple math problems involving capacitors and how to use this device in electrical circuits. So you guys already have some idea about how to build a circuit, how to make some measurements with voltage supplies or batteries, resistors and light bulbs. So next step is to add a capacitor into these circuits. Okay, so the topics we're gonna discuss briefly. Capacitors, how to find the capacitance, how to use them in electric circuits, series and parallel, energy calculations, and this particular material inside the capacitor. It's called the dielectric material. How this thing works, what are the properties, and probably a little bit, chemical information about capacitors, like how, what is the structure inside and what kind of compounds that are being used and all that. Okay. So what is a capacitor? Let's see what the next slide is. Okay, so capacitors. So in electrical circuits, so before talking about capacitors, let's go over what we already know. We know that this thing, this is a voltage supply, or we call it a battery or voltage supply. There's many names, or sometimes we call it power supply, DC voltage source. All these names can be used to this thing. It's a DC battery or a DC voltage source or a power supply, a DC. This term is also important, right? Direct. This comes from the term direct current, but when it comes to voltage, we still say it's a DC voltage source. So the idea is electrons or charged particles are moving in one direction. Now we haven't discussed the other type. There's AC power supplies or AC voltage sources. The symbol is this, a circle and a sine wave inside. That's AC, back and forth electricity. We'll come to that later. This symbol is for unidirectional, a single direction. So that's one thing, one circuit component we are familiar with. You also know this symbol. We talk about this briefly, a resistor. It's a current limiting device. It has many other applications as well. It's a resistor. We also talk about this, the light bulb. In electrical circuits, this is not like a huge important thing. Light bulb is just to provide light, but voltage supplies, multi-purpose. Any electrical circuit needs that. Resistors, everything needs resistors. Any kind of electric circuit needs resistors. So similarly, capacitor is also a very useful device. So that's why we're gonna talk about it in detail. And also the idea of capacity or capacitance, it's not limited to electrical circuits. Anything any system that has electricity going through it. Doesn't need to be an electric circuit. Human body is a good example, right? The human brain has a very complex electrical circuit, electricity moving through neurons. Human heart has a very precise electrical signal going through it. So anything that has electricity associated has these other properties like resistance and capacity. So electrical capacitance also very important to understand how things work. These neuron cells have certain electrical capacitance. DNA molecule has a capacitance. Human heart has some electrical capacitance. So all these things are really matter if you study these things in detail. So few more things that we need to discuss before getting into the actual capacitor discussions. One is a simple electric circuit which you already know, like for an example, let's say you have a battery connected to a resistor, right? So here we have, let's say, 1.5 small battery. Here you have a 10 ohm resistor. Now when I say resistor, you can think of those little resistors you saw on the circuit board, those little cylindrical components with two connections. Now in circuits, resistor can be anything, right? It can be a light bulb as well, because a light bulb, any component has its own resistance. This could be a light bulb with 5 ohm resistance. It could be an electric motor with some resistance. It could be some electrical device like a ceiling fan or a microwave oven or a refrigerator. It could be any kind of electrical component. In the circuit diagram, we don't have to draw the actual component. We don't need all of that details. We don't need to know what it is doing. All we need to know is how much resistance it has. So even if it is a light bulb, I can just draw a resistor symbol and say this is a 10 ohm resistor. What it does, it emits lights, doesn't matter for circuit calculations, right? So that's one thing. Any component can be represented by its resistance. Number two, in standard diagrams, we indicate the current like this. Coming out from the positive side, going through the circuit, going through the component, coming back to the negative side. So this is called the standard current, right? The standard direction of the current, indicated by letter I. But in reality, what happens is there is nothing coming out from the positive side. This is the battery. This battery over here, the positive side, the negative side, and the positive side. There is no real current coming out from the positive end. That's like a conventional representation. Back in the old days, they didn't know that what really happens. They thought that something comes out from the positive side, but what really happens is electrons are coming out from the negative end. So it's a beam of electrons, a stream of electrons going this way, goes through the circuit, coming back in. So it's really electrons moving in this circuit. There's no positive charges moving, right? Protons are fixed. Electrons are the particles that have freedom to move around. So it's electrons coming out, going through the circuit. Electrons are negative. So in another way, a negative current going in this direction, counterclockwise, is same as a positive current going clockwise. So it really not wrong, right? You can say positives going to the left is same as negatives going to the right. So we're gonna continue draw the direction of current positive to negative, but keep in mind it's really electrons going in the other direction. So that's number two. Number three, little bit of actually a new equation I'm going to discuss briefly. Now remember, when we create parallel electric fields, we place two metal plates like this and we charge one positively, the other one negatively. And then we say that there's an electric field between them, E. Okay? So how do we in practice, how do we do this? If we have two metal plates, we connect them to a battery with some voltage V. Now if the plates has some separation between them, you can't do this if the two plates are really in contact with each other. That won't work, right? If they're in contact with each other, there won't be an electric field. It acts like a single conductor. So this doesn't work. There has to be some gap in between them, some separation D, some gap, some distance. So when the two plates have some separation, you connect it to a voltage supply, a battery, a direct voltage, and then one side becomes positive, the other side becomes negative. So there's an electric field in between. And you might remember a few days back we did some calculations. You place a proton here, it accelerates, it's travel a distance d, we can find what's the speed at this end, all those things. There is a simple relationship between this voltage, the distance, and the electric field. It's given by voltage equals electric field times distance. So if you want, we can represent electric field as voltage divided by meters. So here's another unit, volts per meter is also another unit for electric field. We normally use the unit newtons per coulomb. This is same thing, volts per meter. Okay, so these are few things I wanted to mention before we go forward. So voltage is given by electric field times distance. Therefore electric field can be defined as voltage divided by distance. That's one thing. The standard current, we represent it from positive to negative, but what really happens is electrons moving from negative to positive. And also lastly, in many circuits we will replace the actual component with just the resistor. So these are few things that we need to know when we go forward. Okay, alright, so let's move on to capacitor discussions. Alright, so capacitors. What is this circuit component called capacitor? Very simple device. The basic construction is two metal plates with some gap in between. So it's like the electric field setup we had. So metal plates, two plates, parallel plates. Now this is a parallel plate capacitor I'm talking about, right? There are different arrangements. You can have like cylindrical ones, spherical ones, different types of capacitors. The most common one and the one that we're going to study are parallel plate capacitors. So you take two plates. So initially there's no charge, right? Two neutral metal plates. Like imagine like two pieces of aluminum. You place them in front of each other with some gap, and then you connect this to a battery. Okay. The battery voltage, let's say V. Now what happens is, the standard way is to draw a positive current going from positive side to the other side. So we're not going to do that here. We know that in reality, electrons going to leave from the negative side, and then these electrons will accumulate over here on this plate. So when there's a lot of electrons on one side, now the plates are not that far apart, probably like in reality these are close gaps, right? about maybe like a half a millimeter, very close to each other, but still there is a gap between them. So the presence of these electrons going to push all the electrons away from the other side. So the electrons going to come back to the battery, making this side positive. It's not that electrons jumped from this plate to the other plate. That didn't happen. The presence of electrons repels all the electrons from the left hand side plate, leaving it positively charged. Now we have an electric field. Now there's a charge separation. This side has an accumulation of electrons. This side has extra protons. Now there's a charge separation. Now if you remove the battery, if you get rid of that, what you have is this. A positively charged plate and a negatively charged plate with two connections with an electric field in the middle. This thing is a capacitor. That's it. This is called a capacitor. Now we have a charged capacitor. This thing acts like a battery. You connect this to a light bulb. These electrons can recombine, go from this side, go through the light bulb, come to the other side, reconnect with these protons and become neutralized. In that process, we can get some light out of this thing. It is like connecting this bulb to a battery, right? So a charge capacitor acts like a battery. But there's so many other uses as well. This thing is a storage device. A capacitor is an electrical storage device. You can charge it, recharge it millions of times. Charging, discharging times are very precise, so it can be used as a timing device. So there's so many applications like that. One very common application in medical kind of fields is, you might have seen this, I don't know how to pronounce it, defibrillator. You know what I'm talking about, right? When person is having a heart attack or something, the paramedics come and put those two charge plates across their body and give them an electrical surge to restart the heart. That is a big, strong capacitor, a charge capacitor. So again, why do we use a capacitor instead of a battery? Why can't we just use a battery and put the terminals across the person? Capacitors are very precise. You can, to the nearest nanoampere, you can control the current. You can control the time it takes to discharge. Everything is precisely controlled compared to a chemical battery. So it's a very precision device as well. So going back to the discussion, this is the capacitor. Two plates with some gap in between. Connect to a battery, you charge it. So this is the charging process. This side with the battery in between. This is the charging process. This is the discharging process, right? Using the capacitor for some purpose. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Now here you see the two plates, the two parallel plates. The plate area is given by letter A, the gap between the plates given by D. In practice, to make actual capacitors, you take the two plates and you roll them into a cylinder, and we put something in between the gap, some insulating material, so even when you roll it really thin, the two plates won't touch each other. The thing that goes inside as the insulator has so many other advantages. We'll come to that soon. But this is a simple construction. These are called parallel plate capacitors. If I go back to the first slide, here's how they look like. The most capacitors we use in our circuits will look like this green one over here. Here the top ones, they are variable capacitors. You can change the capacity. Something like when you listen to radio stations, you go from one station to the other, you tune the radio station to another channel. You are changing the capacity of the selection circuit. So variable capacitors have those kind of applications. The storage devices, because of that capability, they are used as memory devices. So most of these these computer memory chips like RAM, random access memory, programmable memory devices in computers, there are so many names like ERAM, EEPROM, all that. They use capacitors. The storage of voltage, having a voltage is like a +1, 0 voltage is 0, so 1 0 is how computers operate for all their calculations. So we'll talk about those things later, but I'm just briefly saying all these applications. So going back to the slides. This is what happens when you connect the battery. One side get positively charged, the other side get negatively charged. Now we have a charge capacitor. So in electrical circuits, we use a circuit symbol. It looks like the actual construction. It's just two parallel plates. This is the symbol for a capacitor, right? Remember, there's a difference with the battery. Battery is a long wire and a short plate, right? So this is the battery. This is the capacitor. And we use the capital letter C to denote a capacitor. Capacitor has the letter, starts with C, so use the same letter for that. And then so the first equation important to capacitors. Now here we have the circuit. We have the capacitor, connect to a voltage supply. Voltage is V. Now the charges will accumulate on the plates. This side positively charged, this side negatively charged. Now the charge on the capacitor we say is Q. Now we know that this side is all negatively charged, this side is all positively charged. So the positive plate has charge of Q, the negative plate has a charge of negative Q. When we add them together, Q plus negative Q, you can say it's 0. But we don't do that. We don't explain it that way. We just say that the charge on the capacitor is just Q, right? We also don't say that it's 2Q, like Q plus Q is 2Q. No, that doesn't work either. It's a charge separation, and it's also equal, right? It's not like this side has 10 microcoulombs and this side has 9 microcoulombs. That doesn't work either. When you connect the capacitor to a battery, it's going to be equal. Like if you have 5 microcoulombs here, it will be positive 5 microcoulombs on the other side. It's going to be equal. And whatever that number, the positive number, this is the charge of the capacitor, right? So that's another thing important. And then the amount of charge a capacitor can accumulate when connected to a battery of voltage V is given by its capacity or capacitance. Capacitance or capacity is denoted by letter C. So that's the symbol means. And there's a simple, nice relationship between the voltage connected, the charge accumulated, and the capacitance of the capacitor is given by Q equals CV. charge accumulated on the capacitor is equals to the capacity multiplied by the voltage supply connected, right? So Q equals CV is the first equation for capacitors. Alright, so let's go to the next slide. So what is this quantity C called the capacitance? Capacitance, or Q equals CV, we can rewrite it capacity. Capacitance equals charge per volt, the amount of charges accumulated per 1 volt, right? So this charge per volt, this is Q. Now here's the thing, this capacitance is C. Unit of charge, coulomb, that's also C. So we have to be careful not to get confused between this. Capacitance and coulombs have the same symbol, alright? This is volts. So coulombs over volt is called farad, capital F. So the unit of capacitance is farad. There's microfarad, there's nanofarads, millifarads, farads, kilofarads, megafarads, all sort of things. Farad itself, 1 farad, comes after the famous scientist Michael Faraday. 1 farad itself is a big amount of capacity, right? So most of the capacitors we deal with will be around micro or nanofarad, right? So 10 to the negative 6 farads is 1 microfarad. Okay, so let's move on. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so one more time, capacitor given by, for an example, we can say okay, here connected to a battery, voltage. So the capacity of the capacitance is given by farad, this 2 metal plate device. For an example, I can say C equals 20 microfarads. Now, if I connect this to a battery of 1.5 volts, what's the charge this thing can accumulate? It's given by Q equals CV, 20 times 10 to the negative 6 times 1.5 to 30, right? 30 times 10 to the negative 6 coulombs. This is the charge, right? This is in farads, this is voltage. When you multiply them, you get coulombs. So the charge is 30 times 10 to the negative 6 coulombs, or you can say 30 micro coulombs. So this is how you apply this simple equation. Okay. So we will work on few math problems like this, but it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple equation. Q equals CV. Next thing is, when we have a capacitor, for a given capacitor, what determines the capacity? Now, capacity is determined by the physical construction of the capacitor. So we're going to study parallel plate capacitors. These are the most easy to understand type and the most common type. Parallel plate means just 2 plates parallel, close to each other with some gap, and then connected to a battery. Oops, connected to a battery. There are other capacitors like cylindrical capacitors. You have a metal cylinder enclosed by another metal cylinder. So this is one cylinder inside the other one. So between them there's capacity. So that's one type, a metal sphere enclosed in another metal sphere like a metal shell. So these two are like two parallel objects, right? So that's another type of capacitor. So the and also any any mat any object that has some kind of electrical conductivity, so has some charge on it, acts like a capacitor. So knowing the shape, then we can, if we know how to find the capacity of a particular shape, we can apply these theories. Like neurons can be thought as cylindrical objects. Sections of human heart or human brain can be thought of like having a spherical like structure, so we can calculate their capacities. But we're going to stay with the parallel plates. Okay, so let's go back to this slide over here. You see the two plates, they have the plate area and a separation D. So area is A, the gap between them is D, and you see that there is some insulator material filled between. So that is also very important. This is called the dielectric material. In some capacitors, the one that we're going to discuss first, it's empty. So the dielectric material, what's inside is air, right? Or you can say just space, free space. If we don't put anything in between, so it's an air-filled capacitor, or the material inside is just space. Capacity is given by this simple formula, epsilon. You know this. This is the permittivity of space, plate area divided by D. Capacitance of a capacitor is given by the permittivity of the medium inside multiplied by the plate area divided by D. So having a large plate area, when A gets bigger, capacity gets bigger. Having a medium with higher permittivity, so air has some amount of permittivity, but if we can find something with more permittivity, you can have more capacity. Plate area, if we can make it smaller, capacity goes up. Means we bring them as close as possible, you have a higher capacity. So in practice, they try to bring these plates as close as possible, like into sub-millimeter, micrometer level, and then put something in between to prevent them touching each other, plus increase the permittivity. So having that dielectric material in between really improves the capacity of the capacitor. Okay, let's try a simple example. So once again, for a parallel plate capacitor, the capacitance given by epsilon area over distance. Alright, so let's clear this and let's go to this slide. Capacitor calculations example. It says calculate the capacitance of a parallel plate capacitor. Why don't you guys go ahead and give it a try first before checking the answer. It says plate area. So here's the two plates. It's parallel plate. So when we say area, it's actually the area of a single plate. That's what goes into the calculation, right? So area is 20 times 3 centimeters. So 0.2 times 0.3. Things has to be in meters. Separated by a 1 millimeter gap. So 1 times 10 to the negative 3 meter gap. This is D. air gap. So it's air gap. So epsilon is 8.85 10 to the negative 12 as I remember. Let me double check. Okay, yes, epsilon is 8.85 10 to the negative 12. We've been using this for a while now, so I should have remembered that. Anyways, the question asking calculate the capacitance. So it's a parallel plate capacitor. C equals EA over D, 8.85 10 to the negative 12, 0.2 times 0.03, that's the area, divide by 1 times 10 to the negative 3. So take the calculator, type in the numbers. It's gonna take some time. I have 0.0531 times 10 to the negative comes up negative 9. So I can now 10 to the negative 9. So this is like 0.031 nanofarads. Or you can say, without going that way, you can just say 5.31 times 10 to the 1 to negative 11 farads. That's fine, right? That's an answer. Or you can say 53.1 times 10 to the negative 12 farads. Negative 12, 10 to the negative 12 is pico. So you can say 53.1 PF. That's also an okay answer, right? It's good to know that this what this letter P stands for, 10 to the negative 12 picos. So here we have the capacitance, either in farads or in picofarads. What is the charge on each plate if a 12-volt battery is connected across the two plates? So here's the capacitor. Here's the capacitor. Here's the battery. 12 volts connected to 53.1 PF, asking the charge. Q equals CV. 53.1 10 to the negative 12. We convert that into farads, multiply by 12. What is the charge? Multiply by 12. So I have 63.72 times 10 to the negative 11 coulombs. Yeah, this is what I have. 6.3 times 10 to the negative 10 coulombs. That's better, I guess. So that's the charge. Okay? So the positive plate will have this much charge, the negative plate will have equal but negative charge. But when it says charge, we just give the charge of the positive plate. All right. What is the electric field between the plates? So here's the two plates. There's an electric field between them. This is positive, this is negative. Things we know, we have, what do we have? We have the voltage to be 12. We have the plate separation 1 millimeter. We know that electric field is given by V over D. We discussed this equation at the beginning of this this video, right? So that will be 12 volts divided by 1 millimeter. So 12 times 10 to the 3, 12,000 newtons per coulomb or volts per meter. Okay, that's the electric field. Estimate the area of the plates needed to achieve a capacitance of 1 farad given the same air gap D. Alright, you guys go ahead and do that. Calculate how large the plates should be in order to have 1 farad. Now remember, there are capacitors that has that capacity. There are practical capacitors that we use in electrical circuits. 1 farad, even bigger than that, like 10, 20, 100 farad capacitors. So the plate area is going to be a little big. Calculate how big that can be, that is going to be, and think about how to do these things practically. Like a regular television set will have a big capacitor with couple of farads. Is there enough space to put that capacitor inside? So how do we do that? How do we achieve that? So this is so think about that. Work on this. I will post some problems so that we can discuss those in class. All right. Thank you, everyone.